Starring Chuck Connors.
And good morning, everybody. Welcome to Saturday Morning Western Roundup. Today we're going to talk about one of my all-time favorite TV shows, and certainly one of the best Western TV shows ever made, The Rifleman. It came out in 1958, ran until 1963, and it starred Kevin Joseph Aloysius Connors of Brooklyn, New York, also known as Chuck Connors. Chuck Connors is a very, very interesting guy. I had the opportunity to meet him, and I'll talk about that later and some of the stories he shared. But he played professional sports before he was an actor. This is a guy that, well, he stood 6 foot, according to IMDb, 6'5.5". He told me he was 6'6". So I'm going with what he said. And, you know, when you look up at him, you can believe it. The guy was a big man, giant head, tall, broad-shouldered. And he played professional basketball for the Boston Celtics, and he played professional baseball for the Brooklyn Dodgers, which he went on to play for the Cubs too, and a couple other teams in his career. But you know, he loved playing for the Dodgers because he was born and raised in Brooklyn, New York. Here he is as a young man playing for the Boston Celtics. And another interesting thing, Chuck Connors is the first guy to be credited with smashing the backboard in a basketball game. You know, you see that all the time. The guys jump up, you know, these giant 7-foot dudes, they jump up and they smash the ball down and the backboard shatters. First guy to do it, the Rifleman himself. He got into movies with a small bit part in. Oh, there he is. There he's jumping up, getting ready to smash another backboard. Look at that! Look at the vertical height on that leap there. So he gets his first role in Spencer Tracy, Katharine Hepburn film Pat and Mike. Just a small little role, but that started him on his way. That was 1952. His first big role came, or bigger role, not a starring role yet, but he was discovered by John Wayne, and the Duke put him in trouble along the way in 1953, the following year. And we got a couple Star Trek connections, but right here, that's Sherry Jackson, who was in Star Trek, What Are Little Girls Made Of? You know, grew up to be a beautiful young lady. So I digress, as usual, into my Star Trek connection, but we got another one too coming up. He in 1955 he had another little walk-on role in one of my other all-time favorite TV series, The Adventures of Superman, and he played this country bumpkin that had a donkey, and his character's name was Sylvester J. Superman. I think you can write this plot yourself, but that was probably the first time I ever saw him. You know, because I watched Adventures of Superman, you know, as a very young kid. He went on to a starring role in Old Yeller in 1957. And then he had a really seminal role in William Wyler's The Big Country, where he played Buck Hennessy, a really despicable character opposite Gregory Peck and Charlton Heston. And then he was offered The Rifleman in 1958 as a starring vehicle for him, which he originally turned down. He felt that the pay was too low. And so they were going to get another actor to take the role. And the producer decided, you know, he had seen how Chuck had interacted with Tommy Kirk in Old Yeller and thought that was just, he has great chemistry with kids. So they upped the offer, and the rest is history. The Rifleman was originally developed by, of all people, Sam Peckinpah, who went on to become, one of the great directors, and certainly he produced one of the landmark Western films, The Wild Bunch, which forever changed how you saw violence in a film, and how you dealt with violence and loyalty. That's a movie that I will be talking about in our Western Roundup, The Wild Bunch, because it's one of my favorites. But Sam Peckinpah wrote the first episode of the Rifleman, and he was involved in writing a bunch of first season episodes, and they were always good. But he wanted to go in a different direction. I've read a couple different accounts of what the schism was with him and the producer. He wanted to show, and this makes sense, he wanted to show the violence of the Old West, and what that did. That the violence shouldn't be arbitrary. Lucas at the end of the series has a body count of like between 110 and 120 people, depending on what account you read. And I thought the show did a good job in nobody ever got shot and killed by Lucas that didn't deserve it. That's for sure. But I guess Peckinpah, had other ideas. But he also, the other thing that I read about with Peckinpah was that he disagreed with was that he wanted to transition Mark as he aged into the Rifleman himself. I don't know if that's true, but that would have been an interesting transition. It sounds to me similar to what Don Siegel did in The Shoot Us with John Wayne, where Ron Howard, admired him, and this great gunfighter. And, when you live by the gun, you die by the gun. And at the very end, he throws the gun away, and it doesn't become the gunfighter. And that's a story that's been told a bunch of different times, but I don't know if that's true or not. And this is Johnny Crawford, the other principal character of. Let me just go back to this one here. Here we go. Johnny is like the ultimate son. Every dad wants. He's respectful. He's smart. He's just like the perfect kid, and he's so damn cute. The Rifleman was also a show, and I think it's the first show to deal with a single father raising a son. A few years later, My Three Sons came out, but this is the first time that it was shown. Lucas McCain was a widower. His wife had died of, I believe it was smallpox, a few years earlier, and he takes his son out west. I think it's New Mexico that they live, to raise his kid. And the other thing I love about this show is that it's only about 25 minutes long, maybe 22 minutes long each episode, and there's no fat in it. The writing in it is so taut. It gets you in, it gets you to the meat and potatoes of the story, and it takes you along for the ride the whole time. There's always, I think, it's refreshing. There was an episode early on in the season where these two, after Mark and Luke, set up their ranch, these two guys from a big ranching outfit, they want the land, and the owner of the cattle baron, I should say, wants to drive them off the land, and so they burn Lucas's house down. And Mark is all upset. They've come all this way to come out here, And Lucas turns to him and, without rushing it, tells him the story of Job from the Bible. But he tells it in a folksy Western way, you know, as if it was happening to this guy named Job out on a ranch somewhere. So he tells this biblical tale, and you know, Mark says to him, well, golly, after hearing about Job, I guess our problems seem a little small. And he says, yes, they do, son. But of course, Lucas is going to go get some skin for that, what the bad guys did. But the fact that Lucas was a God-fearing man, and he always tried to instill strong moral values into Mark, and lived by them as well, is what I think makes this television so amazing, and so watchable today too. So here's Johnny Crawford a few years later, working with one of the guys that gave Chuck Connors his big break, the Duke. I don't know how Lucas McCain's going to feel about Mark getting shot by the Duke here, but this is from El Dorado, 1966, I think. So it's about 3 years after the end of The Rifleman. Johnny Crawford went on to he had a few minutes in the sun as a sort of a teen singing idol, but then as he grew up, he eventually had a big band and played all over the country, the kind of Benny Goodman style big band music. And now we come to our Star Trek connection. We have the other main principal character of this show is Micah Torrance, the sheriff, and he's played by John Wayne's old pal, Paul Fix. And a couple of years after this show ended, look who shows up in Star Trek in the original pilot, the Cage. You thought you were going to get away with no Star Trek references today, didn't you? Well, you were wrong. Let's see. What else can we talk about this show that I haven't already covered? Guest stars galore. It's a who's who. I just watched one this morning where Buddy Hackett was on, and he played this horrible father of these degenerate cowboys. And, the whole family was just a bunch of degenerates. And Buddy Hackett was in it. And, he just oh, listen, you kids, it's pretty funny. But he did a good job. He sold me on his evilness in it. John Anderson, longtime character actor you see in Twilight Zone and a million other things. I think he has the most guest appearances as different characters in this thing. Sammy Davis Jr. My God, I think there's over 200 guest stars that appeared on this show. So it's always fun to watch these old shows, and you see people in the beginning of their career, Robert Culp, and what they end up going on to. In 1990, I think it was either 91 or the summer of 92, Chuck Connors was brought in for a convention here. It was going to be in Niagara Falls. Teddy Haynes ran a lot of the local conventions in the regions and stuff. And this was a comic book and sports memorabilia show. And so he brought Chuck in as not as the Rifleman, but as a Brooklyn Dodger and a Boston Celtic. And I was a guest, of course, on the comic end. And we had a dinner together, and all the guests were at it and stuff. And I got to sit next to Chuck Connors, and he chewed my ear off, and I got to chew his ear off, and we really hit it off well. I felt like I knew the guy his whole life, and I think he felt that way too when we were talking. We come from the same cut from the same cloth politically. He's a very conservative guy. Was a very conservative guy, and I was just fascinated to talk to him about what it was like in some of these films. And I mentioned The Big Country to him because Gregory Peck was in that, and it was directed by William Wyler. Gregory Peck was a very outspoken liberal in Hollywood. Great actor, great human being. And then Charlton Heston, of course, was a very conservative guy. At least I thought so, until I talked to Chuck Connors, and I said, "So what was it like working with Heston?" This was in reference to politics and stuff like that. And he looks at me and he goes, "Let me get off the screen here for a second. Oh wait, first before I go into that story, let me just here we are. That's me and the Rifleman in 1991, 1992. I had more hair up top, and now I got more down here. But look at that. He had a huge head of hair. So anyway, back to Charlton Heston. So I said, what was it like working with Heston? And he's sitting right here next to me. And he goes, Heston wasn't a conservative. I'm like, oh, really? And then he went off on some of Heston's politics. So now it got me curious. And I said, well, what about the Duke? And he goes, the Duke was the real deal. I'll never forget that. And then he went off and extolled on, how big a guy John Wayne was in his life and in his politics and all that kind of stuff. And it was pretty amazing. It was a great dinner. There was a woman at the bar who came up to the table because she saw Chuck Connors there. Now Chuck is up against the wall. All right. So you got this long table and I'm sitting next to him. Our backs are up against the wall. The other side of the table is open to the restaurant. So Chuck can look out on the restaurant can look in and see him. So this woman comes up from the bar and she's like, it was not her first martini, you can tell. And she walks out and she goes, Chuck Connors, I used to love you in the Rifleman. I want to give you a kiss. And he's like, well, okay. So he stands up, all 6'6" of him, and leans over the table. And she leans in, and she shoves her tongue right down his throat. And he goes like this. He goes back. He sits down. And he turns to us. He goes, she bit my lip. Oh, you can't write this stuff. So the next day is the convention, and in Niagara Falls. And now this is pre 9/11, of course. And so I show up at the show, and I've decided already, I got to get my Winchester signed by the Rifleman himself. So I bring my Winchester in. Security, it's in a leather scabbard, and the guy says, "Is that a gun?" I said, "Yeah." He says, "Well, is it loaded?" I said, "No." And he goes, "Well, take it out." So I take it out of it was actually a buckskin scabbard. So I take it out of the buckskin, I crank it back, show him there's no bullets or anything in it. And he lets me walk into the Niagara Falls Convention Center with a real 30-30 Winchester lever action rifle. So I walk up to Chuck's table. He's setting up with his photographs, his baseball photographs and stuff like that. And I said, "Hey, Chuck," and he looks up, and I go, "Boom," and I put the rifle down, and he goes like this. He goes, "Is that real?" I go, yeah, it's a real 30-30. And I said, I want you to sign it. And he goes, "Oh my God." He says, "I'm not sure if I ever signed a real one before." He signed like kids ones and stuff like that. And one of my favorite possessions ever, signed by the man. How's that? I hardly ever shoot it anymore because I'm afraid that the Sharpie will rub off. So I don't want to do that. But yeah, so that was my. Then one last story. As the show goes on, he's busy doing his thing, and I'm busy doing my thing. And there's always lulls. And at one point, I was signing stuff, and he must have had a lull. So I'm sitting there signing, and then I feel these big meat hooks on the back of my on my neck like that. He goes like this. And I turn around and he's looking down at me, all 6'6" of me. He looks down and he goes, "You goddamn Republican." And then he starts cracking up. And I started cracking up, It's like, I just felt like, we were a couple old pals, That's how he made you feel. He was just a huge personality. He liked people, and he was a lot of fun to hang out with those 2 days, and I'll never forget him. So anyway, that's my Rifleman tales and Chuck Connor tales. I hope you enjoyed them. Let's see who's in the comment room here today. Okay, we got Hyper Kaiju. Howdy, howdy. Good morning, Don. Monster fan, good morning. I have seen several fine episodes of this show. Standouts, the one with Royal Dano as a Confederate soldier with an unhealed wound. The one with John Carradine as a photographer. Yeah, those were both first season episodes. The one with Royal Dano is incredibly touching, where he was shot by Sheridan, and Sheridan shows up on the ranch, and there's a point where these two old war dogs, have to come to terms with, what goes on in war and stuff. It's a really, really excellent episode. Rob Fellows from England, over the seas there, says, hey there to the chat posse. Pop Culture Avenger is here. Good morning. Dr. Mass, good morning. Good morning, chat. Used to watch this as a kid. Watched a few episodes in prep for this. Excellent. Excellent. Victor Thomas says good morning. It is a cool opening. Hail Graham, hail chat, hail the Rifleman. Here, here, huzzah. Good morning, Dennis. Fearless Freep is here. Good morning. He looks 9 feet tall in the show. Well, if he was 6'6" and he's wearing, heeled cowboy boots, you got to add at least another probably 2 inches. He's probably close to 7 feet. I know next to nothing about this series. Here to learn, but apparently Sam Peckinpah was involved in it. Yep. Well, yeah, I touched in that. Time to kick up the spurs and rest a while as I listen to the first water telling of the best westerns from our living legend Graham, and howdy all in the chat. Thank you, Don. How did I not know he was a professional athlete? Well, it was probably long before your day, when you become a major star. Chuck Connors went on to do many other things, other films. He was in Flipper, a lot of westerns, TV series. One of Fox's first TV series was a show, I think it was 1985, 84, 85, 86, something like that, called Werewolf. And he plays the werewolf that started all, Janis Scorsese, which was the name of the vampire, if you remember from 31 Days of Monsters, in Kolchak. So there's a little send-up of Kolchak there with his character name. All right. Good morning, everybody. Love The Rifleman, my favorite Western TV series. Connors was also great on that show. Werewolf, a fun cult classic. Yeah. Yeah, I'd like to see that show again. I wonder how it holds up. Some of those 80s shows are tough chews. Rankabot, hail the early chat. Love these shows, Graham. Excellent. Good morning, Todd. Richard B. loves The Wild Bunch. Well, that's a great movie. It's a great movie, and we'll be talking about that. I think next week, since we just did Chuck Connors and we touched on The Big Country, I think next weekend we'll do The Big Country, because that's an outstanding film and one of the great soundtracks, too. Man of War 665, Neighbor of the Beast says, hail, amigos. What movie was that with John Wayne? Trouble Along the Way, 1953. Oh, getting shout outs for other folks here. There's a Rifleman supercut of all the Rifleman kills recommended under this video. LOL. Yeah, Billy Tucci sent me that last night, and I've seen it before. You know, there's a sequence in a Vic Morrow episode where they're riding in this carriage, and he's like, "Well, so I hear you're pretty good with that rifle, and that you don't use a handgun." And he says, "Well, I'm a rancher. I don't need a handgun, and I only shoot animals, not men." And then, then in that supercut, it says, "Really?" And then it goes and it shows you all the people that he shot. There's 110, something like that, deaths from the Rifleman, and he almost never shot animals. It's pretty funny. Richard B says listening to your dad isn't cool anymore. Well, not on TV. It's not, because they've gone on to show emasculate all the fathers and men in the world. You look at TV commercials, the father's the idiot. It's the wife who can figure everything out. It's really a shame. But there's no way you're going to emasculate that guy. Mad at myself for not seeing the sheriff and Dr. Star Trek connection. Well, that's what I'm here for, to show these things. Oh, yeah, I forgot to mention Johnny was a Mouseketeer. He was one of the first Mouseketeers. So was his brother. Richard Anderson played an old friend of Lucas's more than once. Yeah, Richard Anderson from $6 Million Man was on a few episodes. They tried to spin the show off with an Indian sheriff. He was an Apache Indian played by Michael and Sarah. The Star Trek connection. Day of the Dove played a Klingon, Kang. And he was a Harvard-educated Apache U.S. Marshal, and he appears in at least 2 episodes of The Rifleman, and they were trying to do that as a spin-off series, but it never took. I always thought Branded was an underrated show. That was a later 60s Chuck Connors TV show that he was in. I think he was branded as a coward, wasn't that it? But he wasn't. He didn't do what they branded him as. I think that was the premise for that. Lots of that's awesome. That's freaking awesome. This is fantastic. I think that must be in reference to maybe the rifle that I showed. Yeah, it must be. Love the gun. Bill Dunleavy says he thinks Werewolf was 88, 89. Okay. Well, you're sitting in front of your computer. Look it up. I'm too busy. I'm jealous. These days, the only person I could get to sign my 30/30 is my gun dealer. Candace B. Good morning, Candace. We have a lady in the room. Excellent. Let's see. This thing jumped on me, so I missed a bunch of people. Leslie D says it's an awesome story and autograph. Well, thank you. That's a beautiful rifle. It is indeed. It's a model 1890, I think 1895 Winchester 30/30. That's got a kick. I remember the first time I shot that thing, didn't have the butt tight enough against my shoulder, and that hurt. It was like, boom. Any thoughts on the Rifleman comic? I don't have any of them. I'm not sure who drew that for Dell. Morning, Todd Fox. Frank says, some great memories, brother. Thank you, Frank. Sean Walker is here. Good morning, Sean. I wasn't into West as much as a kid, but I was into horror. Werewolf was awesome and pretty gory for TV. He was a great villain. Made me look up his back catalog and discover The Rifleman. Fell in love with the show and character. He seemed like a great guy. He was. The prisoner episode struck me from childhood. That brutal steak bone shank fight really made a mark on my young mind. I haven't seen that episode yet. I started rewatching it from the beginning, so still in season 1, but I'm watching it every day. I'll get to that one. That's not the one where they get or Micah and is that the one where Micah and Chuck Connor or Lucas get kidnapped or something? I'm not sure. Listening to these streams made me dig out some of my westerns. Did you ever see Under Western Skies magazine from 70s, 80s? Each feature a star: Gary Cooper, Bob Steele, Tim Holt, etc. No, I never seen that magazine. Hello, dude. Have you seen The Great Silence? Spaghetti Western. Music by Ennio. Not quite sure what we're saying there. The Great Silence. It's a spaghetti western. I guess it's scored by Ennio Morricone. If that's the title of The Great Silence, I have not seen it, but I do love Morricone's work. Anyone follow The Mandalorian? It's totally using lots of Western film and TV tropes. Oh, absolutely. That and samurai, Kurosawa type references as well. There's one in the first season, which is, the Magnificent Seven, which was based on a Kurosawa film as well. But that's a great series. Really enjoying that. Brandon's American Western series that aired on NBC from 65 through 66. Was sponsored by Procter & Gamble, and it's Sunday night. The series is set in post-Civil War Old West. Number of episodes, 48, starring Chuck Connors. Okay, well, here we go. Talking about The Mandalorian, basically, it's a space western meets Lone Wolf and Cub. Sammy Davis Jr. and Michael Landon had very memorable episodes on The Rifleman. Yes. Yeah, very young Michael Landon. Right around his I was a teenage werewolf period. And Robert Rodriguez directed the last one. Yeah, I saw that. Jesse Johnson watches Chuck Connors daily. All right. Well, in context, yes. But in any action show, if you stream them out there, they're all serial killers. Literature Devil is here. Good morning. Good to see you, pal. Bond says he was a great father. I make sure to be nurturing to my daughter because of his example. Yeah, he was stern with his son, but he was also nurturing and loving. Wasn't afraid to hug him and kiss him. And I got the impression that's how he was in real life too. He had 4 sons, and he spoke about them to me, and they were grown adult sons, at least my age at the time. Some of them maybe even older. And I got the impression that, he was a good father to them. Did he play the Rifleman in one of the Gambler movies? Yes. There was a Gambler movie with Kenny Rogers that had a bunch of 50s actors playing their characters from the day. Richard Anderson, Forbidden Planet. Perry Mason the Kolchak, Night Strangler, etc. And of course, $6 Million Man. Is it possible to accessorize your rifle to get the hoop lever? Yes, I could do that. But if I ever tried to, do that thing, I'd knock my teeth out. This was the same rifle that John Wayne used in Stagecoach, according to the producer of the Rifleman, Arnold Levin. Now the Duke was 6'4". He was 6'5". I'm 5'9". If I ever extended this thing out with a loop on it and it spun around, my arms aren't long enough. Bam! I would bust something. That would not be pretty. So yes, I could, but no, I won't. Let's see. Another Star Trek ref, Grace Lee Whitney, was in episode The Tin Horn. Ah, cool. I haven't gotten to that one yet. I'm sure there's the guy who played Kelso in Where No Man Has Gone Before, the second pilot of Star Trek. He was in an episode in the first season as well. That's it. Ex-Confederate major blames Lucas for what happened to his company. Dr. Mass says, hit the like button. I agree. Hit the like button, folks, if you like this channel. Let's increase this subscriptions and also the viewing. I've got the subscriptions I need to monetize now, but I got to get the viewing hours up so we can do super chats and stuff like that. Let's see. I think I covered everybody in here. Let me just scroll on back, make sure I didn't forget anybody. Because sometimes this thing just jumps and I don't want anybody to think I just skipped over them and didn't say hello, because I do appreciate you all coming in the morning. I slapped it like it owed me money. Yes, I want you all to do that. Slap that like button like it owes you money. And Hyper Kaiju says, and back the Shinu before it's too late. Yes, books are going to be shipping to me next week, and we'll begin. I'll begin signing them, and we'll start the shipping process as soon as we can coordinate that. We've got COVID stuff going on. We're in an orange in our zone, so it's going to take a little organization to get the stuff, but fear not, it's on its way. It's coming, but you can still order the books. If any of you folks are in Western New York today, I will be at 42 North between noon and 2 signing the Shinu Brew Imperial Stout cans. So you can come on by. All the signing fees and $1 from every sale of the can goes straight to the Make-A-Wish Foundation. So it's great beer and it's a great cause. So, if you got the time and you're in the area, please come on by. Sean says these chats are a lot of fun. Thank you for doing them. Oh, you're welcome. I'm enjoying them as well. Have Gun Will Travel is another great show. Main character resembles Lee Falk. That is a great show because it had, again, great writing. Gene Roddenberry was one of the writers on that show before he created Star Trek. And Richard Boone, who Herb thinks looks like Lee Falk, played Paladin. And that's, again, it's probably my second favorite Western TV show. It's right up there. It's close. That's a great show. Great writing, great characters, and good action too. Okay, let's see. I think I got everybody here. Scott Clark, can't wait to get my hands on the Canoe Brew. Well, hopefully I'll see you there today. I did order 24 packs of the Canoe beer. Since I am in New York, they can ship to me. Oh, perfect. Excellent. Excellent. It's good. I've tried some. The beer has a nice coffee flavor to it. It's a 9% ABV, so it's got a little kick to it. But the chocolate and the berry notes in there are such that it's not sweet in any way. It's a really nice sipping beer for a cold winter night when the Canoe is prowling around your house. I will be having one or two today, as a matter of fact. And for you guys that are backers of the Canoe, I'm taking this downtime right now to start building the campaign for the next series I'm going to do, the next book called Alien Alamo. I'm really excited about this one because the elevator pitch for this story is the Rifleman meets Starship Troopers. So it takes place on a Texas ranch called the Alamo, and it involves a father and a son in a war in which they end up saving the world, and the world doesn't even know it. So it's going to be this great battle on this ranch with a father and son against these aliens. It's going to be great stuff. So please sign up for it. Keep your eye out in social media, and it'll be launching in January. So save those shekels. You're not going to want to miss this one. Okay, well, I think that should do it, gang. I gotta get going and get ready for the beer signing early this afternoon. So thanks for tuning in. This Wednesday on the Storyteller Show, Wednesday night at 8 o'clock, I'm going to have another special guest, Bo Smith, writer of many comics and the creator of Wynonna Earp. You've probably seen that show on Netflix. It's an excellent show. It has a Western tie-in, so I thought you guys might appreciate that. It's like Western sci-fi. So Bo's going to be on. We're going to talk about storytelling approaches from his point of view. So stop in Wednesday, and then next Saturday morning, we'll meet here on the ranch again, and we'll talk about the big country. So you have a great weekend, gang, and we'll see you then. Thanks a lot. Bye-bye.